By now we should know how to graph an equation of a line when it's in slope-intercept form, or y equals mx plus b. But what happens if we're given an equation of a line that is not in y equals mx plus b? For example, this is an equation of a line, 3x plus y equals 4. But it doesn't look like this, right? It doesn't look like that. So the key is, and the reason why this is useful is because remember, m in this equation stands for the slope, and b stands for the y-intercept. I'm going to just put y-int for short form. So when we look at an equation like this, it's not clear what the slope and the y-intercept are because it's not in this form. So we're going to have to change it around. The trick to changing it around is remembering that y is always by itself in slope y-intercept form. It's always y equals something. So the trick here is just to get the y by itself. So think about when you're solving equations, how would we get the y by itself? So in this case here, this question here, how to get the y by itself? Well, first of all, the thing we need to get rid of is that 3x. How do we get rid of 3x? Well, we can subtract 3x, right? Because 3x is there to get rid of it. We can subtract 3x. And we have to do it from both sides, right? So when we subtract 3x here, it's going to go away. So we're left with y equals 4 minus 3x. If I wanted to make it look like this form exactly, I can put the thing with the x first. Now, I want you to remember, when I move this around, I'm going to move this whole negative 3x as one thing. The negative is actually attached to that 3x. So it's going to look like this. Y equals negative 3x plus 4. Because you can imagine in front of the 4, there's just a little plus sign that you don't see, right? So I've basically just switched the order of the equation. So now it looks like this form. Y equals negative 3x plus 4. So that's the key. You just got to rearrange it so y is by itself. So let's finish the question by sketching it. So we know the b value in this question is 4, right? Because that's the part that's by itself, the number that's by itself. And the slope, or the rate of change, is negative 3. And remember, we can write that as negative 3 over 1, which means down 3, right 1. So we start at 4, right? From that point, we go down 3, right 1. We end up there. Down 3, right 1. We end up there. Right? And we can keep going to graph the rest of the points. And to start from this point and go to the left, we go up 3, left 1. And we get a line that looks like that. There you go. So we were able to graph that line after rearranging it. I want you now to try the your turn question. Okay? Pause the video, try it yourself, unpause to see the solution. So there we go. That's what the answer should look like. When you rearrange the equation into y equals mx plus b, or slope y-intercept form, it should look like this, negative 2x minus 3. So we're starting at negative 3, and we're going down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Okay? All right. Now we can take it to the next level of difficulty, just make it a little bit more tricky before letting you practice. What about if the y isn't by itself? And what I mean by that is, what if the y has a number attached to it? Well, we're going to start off the same way. We want to get the y by itself to make it equal y equals mx plus b, because that's what we want, right? We always want y equals mx plus b. So that 4 is going to be in the way. But let's deal with that 4 at the end. Just to make it a little bit easier, let's just deal with that 4 at the end. So in this equation, I'm going to start off by getting rid of that 3x. I get rid of that 3x by subtracting 3x, which makes it go away. That's just a shorter way of showing that, by the way. So what I'm left with now is 4y equals 4 minus 3x, right? Now, how do I get rid of that 4? Well, 4 is being multiplied by y. So what's the opposite of multiplying by y, or by 4? Dividing by 4. So each thing here, I got to divide this by 4 to make it go away. But I can't just divide that by 4. I have to divide everything by 4. So I also got to divide this by 4. And I also have to divide this by 4. So I have to divide every single term by 4. So now we can simplify a little bit. We're left with on the left side is just y because those 4's disappeared. What's 4 over 4? Well, 4 over 4 is just 4 divided by 4, which is 1. And then what's 3 over 4? Well, we can't simplify that. It's a fraction that can't be reduced anymore. So we can just rewrite that as negative 3 over 4x. Do you see that? All I did, we're allowed to move the 4 so it's just underneath the 3 because it just means 3/4 times x. So we're allowed to just rewrite it like that. Now, one last step. Remember, mx plus b usually has the term with the x before the constant term. So just to rearrange it a little bit, I can write it like this. Y equals negative 3/4 x plus 1. Just to make it look like the equations we're used to. So if that's the case, I think you should be able to graph that now, right? Because the b, or the y-intercept, is 1, and the slope is negative 3 over 4. 1 is negative 3 over 4. We know that means down 3, right 4. So if we start at 1, we go down 3, right 4. We're going to end up there, right? And if I go the other way, up 3, left 4, I'm going to end up at that point right there. So then I could draw a line. I'll draw it in red just to make it look a little bit different. Through that, like that. There's our line. So do you see that? The only thing that's different about this and the previous ones is that we had to divide at the end. Okay? So that might sometimes be the case when the y isn't by itself. So again, I want you to try this question, the your turn question, yourself. Pause the video here, try it, and unpause to see the solution. So when we rearrange this one, we should end up with this, negative 2/3 x minus 1, right? We had to divide everything by 3 in order to make it work out. And negative 3 divided by 3 is just negative 1. So now to graph it, hopefully you did this already, but we start at negative 1, right? And we are going to go down to right 3, down to right 3, down to right 3. And if we go the other way, up to left 3, up to left 3. There we go. We have our line that looks something like that. There we go. That's how you solve these types of problems. All right, so now we know how to sketch the graphs of things that are a little bit more complicated.